Me live in the studio is the Greens housing spokesperson, Max Chandler-Mather. Thanks so much for your time. You heard the critique from the Prime Minister, among others. What do you say to the argument that this is the Greens posturing?
Well, I think given that over the last few months we've made our points very clear, the Labor's Housing Australia Future Fund didn't guarantee a cent in funding and still won't build a home until 2025. And we said we needed two things: direct, immediate investment in social housing and action on rent increases. Now, we've been able to secure $2 billion that will be spent right now because the Greens held firm and pushed Labor to negotiate. And now we're trying to negotiate with them to ensure that unlimited rent increases are made illegal, because there's 1/3 of this country who rents, and I'm sure there's a lot of listeners at home who know that a lot of renters out there are doing it tough, and that you don't have a solution to the housing crisis unless you have a solution to soaring rents. And look, we're trying to negotiate in good faith, and I think a lot of those comments there indicate that actually the government is playing politics with this. We have a lot of serious technical concerns, and we'd like to negotiate with them in good faith, and we'll continue to try to do that.
Is it going to delay the spend? Because the minister, as the minister put it, it's a $500 million secure ongoing pipeline of funding, $500 million every year. It's not a cap. That's but one compromise that the government's already made with the Greens.
Well, on that, it is a cap. So they've said they will spend at most $500 million a year. But crucially, from 2024...
But haven't they indicated to you that they would be willing to go beyond that? That it wouldn't be...
Well, no. As the law stands and the bill stands, it guarantees $500 million, but only from 2024-25. And they've said that they would like to increase spending where they think there's a need. And our point to them is the need is right now. And what we've said to them for a long time is this weird $10 billion gamble on the stock market where you don't spend any money till 2024-25 and don't build a single home until 2025 is a silly way to fund crucial infrastructure like housing. And we've said to them for months, spend money directly now and you'll build homes much faster.
Which they're doing.
Well, we secured that. That's right. And so that's happening. We're not standing in the way of that. That's happening right now.
Why wouldn't the fund, if it is going to be $500 million a year on an ongoing basis, isn't that a good structural support or shift?
Well, firstly, they have nothing on rents yet, so I want to be very clear about that. Now, our point... one of the reasons we're pushing so hard to coordinate a national freeze on rent increases, or at the very least caps on rent increases, is because every time someone is evicted out of their private rental because they can't afford the rent, they join the 10-year-long queue for social housing. Not only that, but 62% of renters are in financial stress, and the RBA has said that rents are going to go up even further. Now, during the pandemic, a bunch of states and territories coordinated action on rents. In fact, the federal government coordinated a national eviction moratorium on rentals. We know in Victoria, when they froze rents for 6 months, that rents actually declined. What we're saying is we need some moderate way to control rents for a little while, at the very least, to give people a bit of relief.
Do you concede that it could distort the market?
Well, we saw in Victoria...
Something like a rent freeze?
Well, Victoria had a freeze on rent increases, and private dwelling commencements increased during that period. They increased.
In a period of rate rises?
Yeah, well, our point on that is the RBA on rate rises, by the way, have said one of the primary reasons that inflation continues to be a massive problem is because of rental inflation. Now, the federal government coordinated caps on energy prices with the states and territories by putting money on the table. What we've said is put money on the table and coordinate a freeze on rent increases, or at the very least caps on rent increases, because that will also control inflation and stop further interest rate increases.
There's a big difference between capping energy prices and major energy companies than, say, mum and dad landlords who... Do you also recognise for many landlords they're having to try and keep everything balanced as well, and therefore have to increase rents in order to pay for the higher rates they're paying on their mortgages?
Well, currently, what happens right now, if the costs for a landlord increase, is they can write that off on tax via negative gearing, and they get a 50% discount if they sell the home on capital gains tax discount. Renters get nothing. And I suppose our question to the government is, what about that young family who know that they're one more rent increase and they'll be on the street sleeping in their cars? What about that young couple who are saving up to buy a home but are spending 50% of their income on rent and know that another rent increase will push them over the edge? 1/3 of the country rents, and what we've said to the government is it's not sustainable in the middle of the worst housing crisis in a generation to basically say to that 1/3 of the country, rents can go up by as much as the landlord or property investor wants. we think that it's more than reasonable to make unlimited rent increases illegal because, this is someone's home and it's not fair, really, that they are subject basically to unlimited price increases when, even on a mortgage rate that's set by the cash rate and by the banks. And often there's a period of negotiation there and mortgage holders are doing it tough. But a bank can't come and say, we're actually just going to put up your interest rate by as much as we want because there is at least some sort of regulation there.